Hello, welcome back to Sharing the Love. Today we're sharing the love with the one and only Aziz Mousa. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. I've been looking forward
Me
to
too.
getting
Thank
on.
you for being here. I'm really excited to shoot this episode with you today. Aziz, to start off, could you describe yourself with 5 words?
Yeah, I think I'd say definitely creative, like first one, happy, passionate. I'm not sure if it's like one word, but I would say hands-on if there's a word for that.
Yeah.
Excited.
And what word out of those 5 words stands out to you in the phase that you're in your life today?
Excited. Or
Yes.
something like that. Yeah.
Alrighty, so let's jump into it. Dun, 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 dun. We've got our love bowl. So you know the drill. Just say stop whenever you're ready.
Stop.
All
I'm
right,
excited.
me too. And the topic for today is acceptance.
Acceptance. That's a good one to
Yeah.
start off with.
My first question for you today is, what's the first thought that comes to mind when you hear the word acceptance?
I would say peace.
Can you tell me about a time when acceptance was required in your life?
Yeah, I think for me, like acceptance rose a lot when I had to deal with grief, I would say for sure. You kind of grow up with like an idea of what is the norm for everyone's like life path and the things that are stable that don't change, like family, maybe like certain big ideas you had for your like identity. And so when you lose those things, you're forced to deal with accepting it or being stuck, but it's not two options where like you're either can be stuck forever or you can accept it. I think there are just two places that you sit in for different periods. So you sit in a lot of that stuckness and stubbornness, and then you also sit after you deal with it in the place of acceptance. And so I kind of had to deal with a lot of acceptance of understanding that those things are changed in my life, not necessarily gone, they're just changed. So yeah, I would say that for sure, like grief and identity.
Right. How do you incorporate acceptance in your life?
Being more present so that you realize that the reality you're in is kind of the new change and that's you accepting it, right? Because if you're never really in the present and you're dwelling on how what you're in right now used to be and the things you had, means you're not accepting this change. Whereas if you're in the moment, if you have that thinking switch where you're like, whatever is around me is what's around me now. Whoever is around me is whatever is around me. And whoever I am is whoever I am right now. And I need to accept that, you know? And the more you do it, the more then you don't have those negative thoughts. So the more you appreciate, and then it just becomes this huge love for like what's next and who you are right now. And obviously you have moments where some things come up and, you know, it's a process, but for sure, let's start with like just accepting who you are in the moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I love that.
Yeah.
And, I always talk about true acceptance. There's like an underlying notion of unconditional love and just accepting things for what it is and being in a flow state rather than in this forceful state of trying to
Right.
make things what they are not. Compassion plays a big role through acceptance. Is the
Yeah.
understanding that there's not a mold that we need to fit in. I feel we
For
do
sure.
so much in this world to box ourselves in labels and in ideologies, and it's like you can be everything and nothing all at once. It's not this
For
or
sure.
that, it's this and that, and it's
Yeah.
okay. And it's okay, and holding yourself in that regard at the same time, embracing the different versions that you continue to evolve in, because this is what life is about. It's a continuous cycle of evolution if you
For
choose it to
sure.
be. And what happens is a lot of people feel stuck because they don't want to accept. They don't want to
Yeah.
accept that now there is a new season that requires a new version of you, and it's time to elevate and step up to that and do the hard work that is required, because it's not easy. The inner work is
Yeah.
not easy. To sit
Yeah.
with yourself and say, what's going on in my life? I need to take a step back and understand. It's just, of course, it's going to be challenging, but the rewards that come off the back of that, oh my God. And we both know that. And we both know
For
that.
sure.
On the flip
You
coin
need
of,
to fly.
Sorry.
Yeah. The gift of life.
Exactly. It is the gift
Yeah.
of life. Maybe that's why so many people in this world are struggling, because there's a lack of acceptance.
Yeah.
Even when you think about people working for their dreams and they're like, oh, but nothing's happening for me, and you're like 6 months into your dream project or passion project, it's like, what, this now, this instant gratification of I want it now. Accept that it's gonna take time. Accept
Or-
that it's going to be challenging. Accept that you are required to, take a different direction maybe sometimes.
Yeah.
My next question for you is, what role do you think acceptance plays in self-discovery and growth?
It immediately makes me think of the saying when people think like it makes you discover your new self or look at your past self. But I'm really not a believer in like old self, new self, because I think you're kind of always you, it's just different things happen to you and you grow into them. When you let acceptance in, the perspectives you had about certain things get evolved because you're not stuck on them, right? Because with acceptance, people are also stuck with the way they view life because they're scared the moment they change it, they're going to let go of who they were.
Right.
Where no matter how many times you change your perspective or the way you think, you're never going to truly lose yourself. You're always going to be at your core there.
Right.
And so I think it's more so when you allow acceptance, you accept that the perspectives you had no longer serve you, and the way that you viewed life no longer serve you. And so you need to accept, different people, different experiences, different career, maybe a lot of different things. When you accept that change of perspective, then you're truly able to take that step further into becoming a better version of you. But there's no old self that you kill or there's no new self you build. It's just different versions of thinking and perspectives, really.
Right.
I think that's what it is.
Right. It's a build up, and that's how it does feed into growth, because the more you are widening your perspective and realizing, no, it doesn't have to be this tunnel vision and this narrow-minded thing where I'm just focused on this one thing. I'm accepting that there are so many, and you open yourself up to opportunities, and in experiencing those opportunities, you are growing. You're expanding your horizon and realizing, who is Bana today in this new situation? Who is Bana today in this other situation? Acceptance breeds the self-discovery, and the self-discovery breeds the growth, right? If we were kind of to draw a map of that. My next question is, in what ways do you think societal or cultural influences shape our understanding of acceptance?
Oh, there's so much to talk about this one. I mean, especially me, being a student of psychology right now, like I'm very big on environmental factors, but also I think biological factors are really important to think of, right? Because, the saying of generational trauma or all those things, it feeds into it. So as much as there's a huge cultural factor, which I know a lot of people usually talk about, kind of want to talk about more of like the biological cultural factors of family. And I think it's more so there's a lot of suppression, and with that starts to come in a lot of illnesses, and comes in those illnesses affecting people's jobs and their responsibilities, which in return starts to make topics that are more about mental health not the priority, because people view their physical health first. I think culturally what has happened is, because of suppression and because of very big sociocultural and sociopolitical factors, those are the influences on acceptance. I think it's something that is not really dealt with, especially being Middle Eastern. I don't think it's a priority number one to talk about mental health. And with that comes, there's not a lot of topics revolving acceptance and your identity and whatnot. And
100%. And wow, and I need to emphasize on this point that you're saying to our audience, because this needs to sink in. Let's kind of make it as an example. When, say, a kid falls off their bike, you see a lot of parents being like, no, don't cry. Why don't cry? Of course they're gonna cry. Let them feel their feelings. Let them feel. I know it's coming from a place of good intention and out of care, but they have to express themselves, in order
Yeah.
to be able. That's why emotional regulation is something so far off top, especially in the Middle East. And when you
Yeah.
see the older generations, all they've done really is suppress their whole lives. So there's a lack of acceptance there of these are my emotions and these are my feelings. Not once
Yeah.
have I seen my father cry. Not once have I, God bless my mother's soul, I saw her cry once in her life. And so now me and my sisters are in this place. Of course, through our healing journeys, we're learning that's not the case. And again, they didn't have the awareness. So this is not a blame thing, right? But
Yeah.
a huge part of acceptance is accepting our feelings and accepting our emotions.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
vulnerability is this one thing where I believe in our culture and our society, we were taught is seen as a weakness. But vulnerability is the opposite of depression is expression. And so if you
Right.
keep suppressing all the time, right, then you end up having, as you said, all these illnesses manifesting and coming out. And so, of course, it plays a huge role in the sense of be vulnerable. This is
Yeah.
how you start accepting yourself, accepting your emotions, letting it out. And so one of the things I tend to find myself, and I've been going to therapy for the past 3 years, right? Until today, after 3 years of being on this healing journey, I tend to avoid my emotions because it's ingrained in me, to run away from it and not to deal with it because it's hard. And it's like, no, you don't need to do that. Why?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
when now I try to teach myself that when the emotion comes up, it's the most important thing. Because when you're avoiding it, you're essentially telling yourself, you know what, you're not worthy of being heard. You're not worthy of being listened to. And that then reaffirms the whole limiting beliefs. That then
Yeah.
creates
Yeah.
more of feeds into the narrative of how we're conditioned and giving the negative self-talk. So acceptance is such a huge part, and I just needed to re-emphasize that point, express your
Yeah.
emotions.
Yeah,
Accept
I
them
mean,
as
and
they
you
come.
said it again, like we can't really blame as well because you have to look at our parents' generation and their grandparents. I mean, most of them, if they weren't directly, they were indirectly children of some sort of war or conflict. The hierarchy of needs in any human naturally is to prioritize the things they see, their physical body, their shelter, their food. It became a generational thing of number one thing is security and safety. And I feel like now we're the generation where only difference is because there's such awareness and talking about it, and there's like this sense of added understanding, and everyone is sharing that we are going through that thing because we're talking about it, and because of social media we're starting to not let it like define us, and we're starting to accept it and trying to do better by sharing, by being more loving, by working on ourselves, by contributing to a lot of different things.
Right. And again, in what you're saying, there's a lot of the pretentious culture that we deal with,
Yeah.
and not just in the Middle East and in our culture across the world globally, that there's a version of what success looks like. And if it's not that, we don't accept it. And that's where we need to start shattering those ideologies and those narratives that we're creating. And the more that you are authentic, the more that you are true to who you are. That's why these are the people now who are influencing the world, the people who are truly themselves, because the people are starting to wake up, and our generation especially starting to wake up and realize how liberating and freeing it is to just be yourself instead of trying to conform to what other people's standards of success are. My last question for you today in regards to this topic is, what's one piece of advice that you'd give to someone struggling with acceptance?
This is a very good question.
Yeah.
If there's this one thing that you're trying to accept, I would say, like, don't fight it. Don't try to go against the current of whatever it is, because you can stand in that place, and it in your mind it will give you that idea that and that fake facade that it's safe, and that you're kind of like, I'm standing here and I'm looking far, but I don't have to get close to it. That's like survival mode.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
really a state you want to be in. Face it and really try to see what it has to teach you, because worst thing is you'll know that it was not for you and you don't like it, and you won't sit in that place of regret and worry and fear and anxiety and
Right.
thinking of who you would have been later on in a few years had you faced it. And so again, I would really say flow with it, and eventually it will take you somewhere. Whether if you'll realize it's not meant for you, or it could be the best thing you've ever faced in your life. Acceptance has a lot to teach you because it starts to bleed in other parts of your life.
Amen. And what's the worst that could happen? And if I can even add to that, is we're creatures of habit. And so a huge part of it is, remember, you want to remain in the comfort. As humans, we want to remain in the comfort. And so if you remind yourself that, oh, okay, this is just the part of me that wants to feel comfortable, it's giving yourself that compassion of, it's okay that you're scared to endeavor in this new experience, and it's okay that it's hard to accept that this is the reality of what's happening right now. But as you said, there's no such thing as failure. That's why I said, what's the worst that could happen? At the end of the day, failure is feedback. Feedback is knowledge, and knowledge is power. You're ultimately never losing anything in that regard. So as we wrap up, what was your biggest takeaway from our conversation today?
I would say the biggest thing is just like how me and you got on right now and shared and talked. Not only has it reaffirmed some things for me, I realize that other people do understand and relate to what I'm thinking, and they could add to my perspectives and, make me feel more validated and heard. This is a micro example of the things we just talked about. It's as simple as this right now.
I love that was your takeaway. Where can our audience find you and connect with you?
I'm on Instagram at Aziz, AZIZ, Mousa _. And then my website is the same thing, azizmousa.com. That's mainly where I'm at. You can find my art, different things I'm up to on there.
Beautiful. And everyone needs to get on this guy's page, connect with him. He's incredible, so wise beyond his years, and just an overall incredible human being. And it's been my honor and a pleasure to have you and host you. This is Sharing the Love. Please comment, like, subscribe, share what was valuable for you from our conversation today, and we'll see you in our next episode.